So, before we watched the first... So, I have permission to watch these, first and foremost. Thank you, Bricky. Thank you, Brickolas. I appreciate it. We watched the first... I do want to say really quickly, my recommendeds are... What is that? Stopping an army of lesbian geckos. So, we watched the first one last week. Really good. We watched about the human factions, and I don't think we heard about... there were a lot that he showed in the beginning that I took note of that we haven't been introduced because I'm assuming they're in here. Okay, they're not. We haven't even started. This is every Warhammer faction. So, Chaos Demon, the Astart. Okay. I'm gathering my information here. Okay, so we're gonna get started here. There's a video on YouTube that summarizes our first watch through. So, all right, let's get started. Okay.
2 in a 2-part series.
By the way, I'm gonna pause to react and not try to talk over him too much.
On the Warhammer races. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man. You can check that out in the description, and I would highly recommend you watch that to get context for this episode. If you already have, go ahead and keep on watching. So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again, but a little bit less. We also got demons and shit. So as I've mentioned many times before, we've discussed the warp, the immaterium, the hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm of our existence.
Now, my understanding of the warp is that it's been a little while, so I'm probably going to check in with you guys for fact checking of my understanding. Is the warp everywhere? That's what the warp is, and that's what the psychics pull from, and it's like the Force. It's basically everywhere. Okay, it's the Force. I like that. It's another dimension. Cool.
In the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny.
He's peeking.
It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination of just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are 4 gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are...
So before we go on, I have a feeling that the warp is used as a scapegoat for plot elements frequently due to this unexplainable nature. At least that seems like from a writer perspective how I would use it. Yep, pretty much. Deus ex warpina. Okay. It just does things. Things happen in this warp, parallel reality, energy field, force-like magical realm. It's a place that's not a place. That's an energy that can be tapped into, but only sometimes, and there's gods of them. Okay, let's get into the gods.
Are the 4 major chaos gods. And if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he is the easiest.
His name is Khorne? Dude, there's no way.
Khorne is your classic Satan.
Khorne?
He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts, death. You ever heard the term blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne? That's Khorne. The whole idea is that he is all about the...
There's this crazy quote, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, and it comes from a guy named Khorne. Oh my god. Can we name him something like Blood Ripper and Guts Eater? Sounds corny.
Fury and strength of battle. He doesn't care where blood comes from so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death. Very simple to understand. Next up you have Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change. However, the god of change, permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving and scheming and doing his best to cause as much little bullshit as he can.
It's like the Twitch devs. So just changing things so minutely that you almost can't tell, but it has an enormous impact in your ability to exist and permeate. Way worse than Twitch devs. Okay, okay.
Zeech is unknowable. He knows what everything is going to happen, and also that none of it's going to happen. You would ask Zeech a question. That question leads to 3 more questions, and those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, and then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you even asking the questions, or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horse shit?
So he's an internet troll. Supposedly the god of change, but also just kind of, he's got a personality. These guys have like, they're full of personality. He's Twitch chat. He's my Twitch chat. Okay. It doesn't seem like the changes that he enact are like completely overwhelming. I guess, how do I put this? They're just tiny things, right? So, okay. We have Korn, god of complete destruction, and then we have Zeech.
Next up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa Nurgle, he loves you for who you are. Probably not. He will murder you just the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence, death, and decay. He is the...
What does pestilence mean? I know that I hear it a lot. Something, something, horsemen. Pestilence is disease. Okay, thank you. I've like heard that word so many times in my life, and I'm like, this is never going to be important. I'm never going to learn what this actually is. Okay, so he's like a rot god.
End of everything. Him and Zeech do not like each other very much because whereas Zeech represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and pestilence and large bloat and pus and organs and people just being sedentary, sloth.
This is what VTuber haters think that VTubers look like IRL. Except in my case, they're right. Not saying I'm a total, like, I'm a hot rod or nothing, but it's true.
All of us will end up the same way and broken down through just sheer never-ending decomposition. So the joke that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot and we all die and wither. That's Nurgle. He gets to you. He's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well, and he chunk. Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is Slaanesh, also known as the Prince of Pleasure or the God of Unspeakable Excess. Slaanesh is generally referred to with sex, but it's not only sex, it's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. Slaanesh is just the idea of the senses of the body being cranked to not just 11, but more like 17. See,
I'm sorry. That sounds a little bit like the god of autism. This is the god of overstimulation. I'm autistic, I can say that. So Slaanesh enters a party and makes everyone there suddenly aware of their clammy hands and the way their feet feel in their socks. Is every gender no gender? All genders? Okay, but none. Is every theoretical gender and also could be none?
Let's discuss Slaanesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done fucked up. But it, or whatever, is mainly about just the excess of emotions. And
that's a
therefore,
lot of titties.
Sex is generally a large part of it. However, it's mostly pain and torture. Lots of pain, torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs. Lots of drugs. Slaanesh gets off on everything. Extremes in happiness, extremes in sadness, extremes in pain and sadism and masochism. And of course that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff. And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything. Mainly pain, so the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of them have things like spikes.
This is crazy. I love this character.
Or any kind of BDSM style gear, because it is unspeakable excess. So a little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk more about the Dark Eldar layer in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you'd want to. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up, and just frightening things, right?
I'm sorry, so we have Korn, we have Slaanesh, I can't remember the name of Pestilence, and then we have the Twitch troll. I already can't remember. Nurgle. Nurgle.
Well,
I can't,
the thing
how do I
is that, of
pronounce
course,
that?
one, your mind is put
Zench? I
into
can't
the
remember
warp
already.
and the materium, so you can be easily swayed by
We'll
chaos
say it
demons
again.
when they get into your head, especially if you're a
Remember
psyker.
the
Sometimes
change,
regiments
the
of
Twitch
the
troll.
less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians
Zeech.
or, say, low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally refer. However, and this might seem strange, chaos in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos gods have another side to their coin. Korn will never lie to you. Korn will never stab you in the back. Korn isn't about conniving and scheming. Korn is about straight up mano y mano, you versus me, get in the ring, we're gonna murder each other hard right now.
Let's
It may
go.
not be a good thing at the end of the day,
Honor.
but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Zeech generally don't get along because Zeech is that conniving schemer, but he's also about the idea of hope. There is change for your problem, the hope of the galaxy, the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want.
Okay, so these chaos demons are actually all the good and the bad in a lot of things. They're not just the bad. They're all sides of the coin. So basically, if you were to kill one of these guys, like if you were to kill Zeech, you would never have change ever again. They are chaos, as the name says. Right.
Changer of ways.
You wouldn't be able to kill him. Oh, because that's right. I hear a lot of things that die in this universe just go back to the void, not the void. I just watched Arcane. to the void, not the guys, help me out here. Warp.
That is Zeech. And of course, Zeech and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality
not physically
and
exist.
ending. The fact that you
not real.
can be mentally at peace knowing that you
Their
will
concept?
end and how you.
Basically, these are fake gods. Well, I mean, when I say fake gods, these are like, when you say they don't really exist, they're real. Oh, okay. I was like, are these just pagan gods that people have concept given life? But they actually do things and like you can see them? Or is this just like one of these things where we think they're there, they're in fact very real? Okay. They do influence the universe. Can you talk to them? I'm super curious. They're thought gods. They're a living, thinking concept. Okay. Oh, okay. So they're very, you don't. Gotcha. Just don't think about them and they're gone. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, I was like wondering if this is a Zeus, Jupiter type deal, but it's not. They talk to you. Okay. Corn can kill a plant. Okay, so they actually do things.
Will end. Fear of the unknown, fear of change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that ability that this is over. We are all the same, and we will all end the same.
Time is the great equalizer.
The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. Slaanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaanesh embodies happiness. Slaanesh embodies excitement and
Very
joy
good.
and pleasure.
Happy.
Not only in the
Awooga.
sense of the physical, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink and air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with
is pretty
Slaanesh.
good.
So you have to ask, why are they always represented as
Censor
super
bars
evil
are off.
skulls
Could you
and
please turn
spikes
the
on
censor bars
everything
off?
and want to murder everybody? I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts, even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him. So cool. So combining all this together, on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee-based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are, as they seem, demons.
So you have different physical little guys, demons, who are spawn or at least, of course, allied to each individual chaos god, and they fight on their behalf, and they probably get perks. And here we have Khorne and the Khornettes, as you can see. Yes, they serve their respecting gods. Okay, so are they ordered to, or they're just because they are. Also, they're color-coded. How nice. I was gonna say, are they like people who were like, I make a pact with Khorne and now I'm a demon? Or is it like they're just like, you exist now. I am Khorne, I'm boy pregnant, and I'm gonna have a boy baby.
So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k and a massive threat to almost every single faction with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
Okay.
So Horus and all of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs, they have all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater demons? They're demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids that are pretty awesome, if I'm gonna be honest. They look really, really cool.
Okay, so we have the bad Primarch. The bad Primarch who fights the Emperor and puts him in the almost dead state where we have to sacrifice 1,000 psychers every day. He stays alive. They're able to warp without they have to keep him alive or else they lose the ability to travel space. Everyone dies. Bad, bad, bad. Okay, so we have our bad Primarch. What is the name of the Primarch who is big bad? I can't remember. It's definitely not Hans. It's definitely not Horse. All right, it's Horus. Okay, Horus, we have 18 Primarchs. 9 of them split to go to the Void. Some of those 9, so they're all following Horus. We've got this group of 9 kind of like extremely powerful children of the Emperor of Man. Horus is super dead. They follow Abaddon. Right, but at this point, have we gotten that far? I guess. I guess. I know that Horus dies fighting the Emperor. But what happens is Horus is the one who gathers them all and like, we're gonna, I don't wanna, my dad, and they go fight him and he loses and a lot of them die, apparently.
Associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down. But
the chaos is a buff, I guess.
Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slanesh. These people, they are some messed up people. They're just sensory overload.
So, Bricky, this pause. I'm so sorry. No. Now I'm curious if each of the Primarchs, the bad Primarch, are if they're all loyal to a specific, are each and every one of them loyal to a specific chaos god, or is this just the ones who became part demon?
Tons of drugs, tons of torture, and I think Fulgrim is a demon Primarch right now, and oh god, I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because the Emperor's Children are not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists, with Primarch Perturabo, I believe is his name. They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the 4. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people and terrorism. They're generally about fear.
Evil Batman?
Rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron, still
a lot
alive,
of heads.
Also excited to see.
Angron. He's going pretty quick with all these evil Primarchs. That's a lot of heads, man.
Angron.
He's angry.
If you think you've known an angry person, Angron is the angriest son of a bitch
Angry
you will ever
Ron.
know. Angron removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angrier.
I respect that dedication.
Mortarion himself is actually one of the models, and look at him. Look at him.
He didn't do it to himself.
It's so
Poor
cool
guy.
looking. Of course, Nurgle based, obviously. So very slow, but very tanky. You've got the Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning. At least I blame them for it. They're little assholes. You got the Black Legion with Primarch Horus.
Horus.
Get fucked, nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch, Alfarius,
Dead.
Omegon, Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch, Magnus the Nerd. Thousand Sons also have their
Magnus
own
the
just
Nerd.
Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. He looks super cool, as
Yo, the horn nipple.
you can tell, and they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat, but overall,
Oh yeah, that's so cool. I didn't pick up on which Primarchs are dead and which ones are alive. I feel like he mentioned at least 3 dead ones. I got a good overview. There's no way just watching that section is going to help me memorize these. So I think I asked this before. No, you can still make more because you have the stem cell seed thing. So Horus and Conrad are the only ones that I think are dead. Okay. Lorgar. See, these names are gonna, like, I just heard these. This is gonna take another watch.
all of these Chaos Space Marine factions that you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Sons, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least.
Oh, okay. My problem is that, like, this is exactly what happened when I'm reading my textbook about the Roman Empire, is that if somebody just briefly is like, and Agathocles fortified Syracuse or Syracuse, depending on if you're British, and made it so that Rome could not enter in the Second Punic War. I'm like, all right, that's not enough information. Now I need to know. So this is, and then I go on a spree, and then I get done 1 page in a day. So I need to, this is supposed to be a broad overview. So I need to, not the face. I'm sorry for, oh, it's okay. Okay, so I just have a few questions. What does it take to join the Chaos faction? Like, can I go, please, Corn, I would love to be a part of your angry little cult? You ask, that's it? You just ask, and then you just start doing things? Go mad and asking, accepting it pretty much. Okay, damn, okay, so you can go there, a lot of ritual. Okay, it takes your soul first and foremost, gotcha. So it's easy to fall, like, there's a lot of temptation. This world sucks. You know, everything sucks. Everyone's a fanatic, you know. But I'm just saying, if somebody claims heresy for me, I'm gonna be like, Corn, dude, make me strong. Like, I'm gonna become a heretic. Okay, so you can just ask. So, and once you go to Chaos, you can't just come back. Some people even fall without knowing first. So, like, let's say I'm emotionally overwhelmed all the time, and so I fall into the emotional overwhelmment god. You can come back, but it's rare. Okay. And you can die. So that's another thing that's confused me. If you die, do you go to them? Because that seems like too easy. You go to the warp. Okay, but is that like helping them? When you die, your soul gets eaten by demons. Damn, this world sucks. I love it. I was fighting demons in my life, and now I'm fighting demons in the afterlife. So the demons are in the warp, right? Okay, so I am vulnerable to them, but I don't necessarily fall to them in the warp. I'm not, it doesn't, like, dying doesn't mean I'm resurrected. I am back from the dead, but I am a chaos demon. I'm a little demon boy. Ooh, now I fight you. Ooh, and I, attack. So it's just like my soul is in the warp, and they can utilize that. Okay. A lot of that is left to interpretation. Okay. It's not completely, don't worry about it too much. You're right. Okay.
Hardcore as that quote is, the saddest part is they're mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines, a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes to the warp. Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point. Every demon you banish will return at some point. Chaos is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow, the resources to do so, the requirements to do so are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming. Okay, so that's interesting because clearly they can get more, but then they cannot be stopped. So each addition is actually some kind of like, it's like a recursive function.
You know, it calls itself, it comes back, become more difficult. Recursive in coding means repeat it, like it calls itself, it repeats. Repetitive, it itself repeats. Self-invoked.
Their legions are everywhere, and
It will likely
they're
win.
pretty scary.
Because it's just
So, I promise,
more and more and more over
we're
time.
done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
Xenos, the Eldar.
So let's talk about the Eldar, or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were, as well, responsible for the creation of Slaanesh, the newest demon god. How'd they do that? Debauchery on a world-ending scale. See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient, millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal.
Debauchery!
Debauchery! Debauchery!
When every...
They got so bored they invented a demon god to spice up their life. So that they keep doing drugs to feel more and more.
Everything you have
is
can be
what I'm
so
getting.
easily acquired. You will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant.
Oh my God.
Because these are the first things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander Cohen in BioShock
What is
insane.
this?
All right, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people didn't entirely
So they got
take
like
to that.
porn addictions and stuff?
Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the craft.
Not inaccurate.
They left on these giant continent-sized starships.
They're addicted to anything that will make them feel. So it's obviously porn is not it. It's just like anything. Murder, sex addictions, okay.
Giant continent-sized starships called craft worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. They even had this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium? Well, the Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there are also more horrible, depraved groups and clans. If you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10.
Okay, so Eldars, their life's too good. They end up, they create the, so the Eldars are having kind of communicate, like they're having difficulties because their lives are too good. The Webway is the most interesting thing. It's a pocket dimension. You go through it, but you have to actually go through the dimension itself. And I'm sure these people who are traveling through the Webway on these huge continent ships are reinforcing, oh, we have to stick to the old way. We all have to stick to the old way when they see these extra depraved people.
All of this continued, and it bloated until Slaanesh just burst forth.
The warp was Gregornat and made a Slaanesh out of their excess.
All of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp.
Oh my God.
All of this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom. Slaanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population. Untold trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons.
Okay. Our thoughts not just our actions, but the thoughts themselves affect the warp. So obviously these people are acting on their thoughts, but the thought itself, having an intrusive thought, can actually affect the warp, which is crazy because, like, bitch, I can't control that shit. Maybe your thoughts. I'm a good boy. So So we're currently the warp affected by thoughts. These thoughts of depravity eventually Slaanesh into existence, and she killed 90%. So now I'm curious if the continent world ship people, or if the web people in the pocket dimension, like which ones got the most wiped out, if there was any Slaanesh.
The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia.
No!
And it is horrifying.
Cadia!
This Slaanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this, as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack, that birth of Slaanesh, only affected the ones in the center. So these craft world Eldar were able to escape.
Cadia stands.
Slaanesh.
Cadia may not stand. I'm so sorry. I'm so hyped. These continent ships are so cool.
Got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, craft world or not. What about those people in the webway? These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up, because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed. And they understand it very well.
Holy shit. And I just want to say that basically, these elf people are so doomer that they won't fuck. They're like, what's the point? Slaanesh is going to eat us. They need massive amounts of therapy. I mean, honestly, so if 90% of the population got wiped out, then like 90% of their friends and stuff, making a small comeback. But they're particularly pursued. So by Slaanesh, their fertility's in the gutter. That'll do it. But so we have this issue of they're making a comeback, but they're constantly pursued. And I'm wondering, so in Craft World, were they just as they were trying to go back to the old ways of like not being hedonistic, maybe trying new things and doing technology, maybe something, getting hobbies that aren't like degen. So are these people still just as pursued and sought after as the regular, Adar? What was that? Was their name was? A comeback. It's real. All species, even the newborns. Slaanesh wants them all. Oh my god. Even the ones who weren't necessarily responsible. Eldar, thank you. Guys, should I get a glass of wine? I have work tomorrow. One glass of wine wouldn't hurt, right? Smile. Yes? Okay. Say less. That will make it so, this will make it even better. It's already good. I'll be right back. All right. She's falling to Slaanesh, guys. Slaanesh will never get me. She's born like 40,000 years from now, right? Wait. She's back. Guys, your object impermanence.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craft World Eldar, and living in those Craft World starships I mentioned earlier. And each of them have their own kind of craft world, almost like a Space Marine Legion. Each craft world is in itself its own special kind of group. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population. And their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion and trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder, and Eldar in their own right really rely on this to keep their species alive.
So does their way of thinking actually impact your playstyle? Sound is off? No, it's not. Unless it is.
seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people.
isn't.
And
You
as
got
they
me.
continually,
You bitch.
reproduce and have their craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit.
It's out
They're
of
still
sync?
a doomed race being sucked into Slanesh every time someone dies, but they are
You're so full of shit.
definitely
You got me
doing a little
twice.
bit better than they were
You
before.
fuck.
Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they don't make
I'm getting
up for
so-
in
I'm getting punked
tankiness, they
so
make
hard.
up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call humans Monkai, which is something I mentioned earlier.
This is similar to how the Greeks call the Carthaginians and the Tyrians Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are just Carthaginians in that area. They have their own name for it, even though that is not what they called themselves.
Derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world. Why is it called Monkai? Well, it's because
Monkai.
you can't, in your game, call people monkeys. On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky, generally pretty squishy, hit like trucks, and
That's
move
funny.
at Mach 5. Fast, hit hard, die fast. Exactly how it sounds. They've been good for a very long time.
Glass
too.
cannon.
We bring
Ooh.
only death and leave only carry on. It is a message even a human can understand.
Oh, racism. This
Eldar.
is the
So,
racism.
Drukari.
On today's episode of How Fucked Up Is Fucked Up. That's fucked up.
So those people I
fucked up.
mentioned in the webway, in the super deranged cults and the depraved people of the Eldar, in the webway they didn't quite get a hold onto them. So Slanesh like has them,
Right.
but it has them on like by the pinky finger, and they're slowly being consumed by Slanesh. But they found
Bit
out
by bit.
they can stave her off by doing Slanesh things. The Dark Eldar, by far the worst, most horrifying, disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40k. These are entirely a group of people whose full purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can to torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years, because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very BDSM style too. They definitely have a lot more spiky bits, and they have a lot more of that kind of leathery black look to them. Example, let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen, living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons. The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond, and that's it.
Oh.
Not the worst way to go.
No, that
You
sounds
are invaded by
pretty good.
Chaos Marines or something. You take a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach, and you get cut in half.
I
Painful,
die.
but not the worst.
Yeah,
The
10
orcs
minutes
arrive.
max.
They beat you to death. Hurts, but whatever. Tyranids, they eat you alive. It's pretty
Yeah.
rough. The Dark
Oh,
Eldar.
that's pretty bad.
The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I apologize.
Okay.
You pray you die. You don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony, 24/7. They will make sure you can't not die, as your pain satisfies them. They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices. They will inject pain-based stimuli drugs directly into your nervous system. They will slowly run razor blades across your skin. They will fillet you and just pull out your teeth and your fingernails one by one. They
This
will
is
remove
exactly
your
what happened to
appendages and your
Kaneki
skin
in Tokyo
and wait for it to
Ghoul.
grow back so they can do it again. They will murder and torture and use the R word. It rhymes with grape. Your entire
No.
family in front of you and do the exact same thing to them. You yourself will also be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible. And this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will be contorted, crushed, and twisted into some form of trophy, a fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch, or a TV stand, or perhaps a wonderful hat, while you are, of course, still alive and breathing. And you will
TV
become
stand.
a moaning, fleshy trophy for eternity.
All right.
And that is
How are you going to keep me alive? Picture this. You are watching Netflix, but I am your TV stand going, Like, there's no way. They're very good at that. Eldar tech. What? They turned me into a sofa? They like it? This is like the Colosseum was like, we were like, oh, Romans were that was terrible, but like, bro, lots of experience. How many TV stands do they need? And isn't it better to make it out of like wood? Why is it gotta be a person? This is crazy. You're also blended together with other people? Oh no. This is awful. Dark Elder IKEA does go wild. Here we have a person lamp, and if you are not in the mood for a desk lamp, we have a person standing lamp made out of femurs. Very nice. And the lamp's like, no. This is crazy. So these guys are nuts. I hate these guys. How does okay? So I understand that like it was 10 times more degen in the pocket dimension, but damn.
This is what happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar. They are the most depraved, most horrifying race in all of 40k. They look the part, and they do it so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this because if they don't, Slaanesha's grip will get harder, and they will have their souls pulled away. So long as they keep doing this, Slaanesha's like, "You're doing good, man. You're doing solid. You keep that shit up, you elf
keep it up,
bastards." That's the Dark Eldar.
Okay, so the pretext. They're doing this under the expectation that they will survive. They're pretty much just demons at that point. I'm assuming a ton of these turn to demons.
Eldar, that's the Drukhari. They are horrible. On the tabletop,
they also
they're
just like
actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even squishier than the Eldar, but they hit generally even harder. Fast attacks, skirmishers, really quick, speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage, get away kind of stuff. That's most of the Dark Eldar. Look up the definition of Grim Dark in a dictionary. You'll find a picture of the Dark Eldar. And Sev from Republic Commando. A quote from Mr. Vecht. We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are plentiful indeed.
These guys?
Dark Eldar. Let's talk about the Harlequins.
Not invited to my birthday party, by the way.
Harlequins. Clowns.
What's the matter, Andy? Don't you want to have some fun?
The Harlequins are a bizarre race of Eldar. They're demonic clown performers. They're like a weird mix of Sander Cohen from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to craft worlds or any of the weird Drukhari people. They guard something called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending.
Dark Eldar kids aren't evil. So Dark Eldar is just the pocket dimension Eldar who are conditioned over time to become Dark Eldar. Is that true? Or is it the pocket dimension and yes. Okay. Mostly right. You get it. Okay. We got some clowns.
Knowledge deep in the.
I was not expecting the clown twist. This feels a bit like a twist. So these are performers. I know Jin, so he compared it to Jin, who just wants to make art and, you know, value the most valuable things, have the most art potential, so he uses life.
The heart of the Eldar webway, and
these
also
are
guarded by
again.
the god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god. So imagine the things that an Eldar, these depraved individuals, would find funny. Oh. And this is the god of that. Oh. It's a horror clown. These are gods of horror for us normal people. For them, they're like, oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly. Honk, honk. They're very bizarre and difficult to describe. He's entertained. They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slaanesh somehow, but their main thing is guarding that Black Library, and the Harlequins just...
Okay, but somehow is not enough to explain the escape of this mortal enemy of a complete race causing near extinction. Is it this god that protects them? The whole conflict for the other ones... So it's this god. It's this clown god that is competing with a chaos god? Kegorok. I can make any god, apparently. So I can just be like, dear jiggle god, bring me all of the jiggle physics. Make it real. And enough of you, okay. Okay.
They're demon clown performers. They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee. They're demon clowns. They're very strange. Harlequin,
Okay.
Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They're all over the place.
So okay, so we have it's been a bit on the Eldar, right? So there are the Craft World Eldar, there are the Dark Eldar, and then there's the clowns. Are you kidding me? So, and they're all evil, but in their own way, and one's trying not to necessarily be evil. That's kind of what I understood from the Craft World Eldar, is that their goal isn't necessarily to be evil. Like, they were trying to return to tradition, whereas the other ones were kind of embracing this unholy god that they created. Is that dinosaur Amish Eldar? That's crazy. But they're still evil. They're still, you know, afflicted by slay. Harlequins are not necessarily. Are you kidding me? Look me in the eye and tell me this shit's not evil. This is evil. Bricky doesn't talk about Exodites, which are space wood elves. Are those good guys? Yeah, because, okay, we're not, this isn't necessarily bad, like, this is just factions, and we're in the non-human section. So I think I'm kind of trying to figure out the alignment. So now we're in so this is either Tyranids or Tyranids.
Following me, Ma. They're following me.
It's Matara Khan.
The bugs.
She don't look like this.
The Tyranids. Now, you want to talk something a little more fun, a little more simple than all this crazy Eldar shenanigans? Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were. Apparently StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much like Eldar.
There's no fucking way StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game. Do they have the same maker? Oh my god! Zergling, oh my god, wait! They don't? What? That's crazy! Oh my god! The deal fell through? What do you mean the deal fell through? They clearly made, like, they still have the names. How close was it being? Tried to get the license. Oh my god. Couldn't get the rights. How far did they get before they could StarCraft and Warcraft? Oh my god. This is blowing my mind. How do they fumble this? Anyway, back to this.
Kind of Space Marine-y. Those Marines, huh? They look a little bit Space Marine-y to me. Maybe.
They do.
I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya? Tyranids are a giant infestation of unfathomable proportions.
Tyranids.
These are giant, extremely bio-advanced hive mind organisms that are basically all about absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all of 40k because all they want to do is eat shit. They want to nom nom the entire galaxy. They hangry and we food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind
endless
has a
hunger. I've seen this before.
Warp. In fact, Tyranids in their own right have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet. And how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp because you need that for interstellar travel. So with people unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit and just will massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning them and all of their other Tyranids into even more advanced monsters. They come in so many varieties too, all in base.
Okay. So much to go over there. So, as they eat, they actually individually advance, is my understanding. By the way, fun fact, the theory of evolution that supported the concept of being able to evolve as you live is called Lamarckism, and we used to believe that over Darwinism, collectively. So like Lamarckism said, like if you were a giraffe and you stretched your neck enough, your neck would become longer, and then your child would inherit your slightly longer neck. And it believed that if you studied hard as a human, you could pass on a slightly better brain to your child. So we genuinely, this is like Lamarckism in this game versus Darwinism. The horde advances.
Based on what is important. Tiny little ripper swarms for scouting and having little dudes eat people up, to the Hormigons, Termagants, and Gene Stealers, all the way to the Hive Guard and the Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant...
Example for the Tyranids. If you kill a lot of Tyranids with explosive rounds, they evolve carapaces that allow them to better resist explosions. If you kill them with flamethrowers...
So they adapt like generation to generation.
Battle fleets,
Super
and even
fast.
something as crazy as the Hierophant Bio-Titan. The Tyranids come in all forms and sizes depending on what they require. They are extremely good at anti-biological weaponry. There is no way you could plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms and are pretty spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic...
Is that a bug with giant claws and then hands holding swords?
Material. Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving. They keep on creating new horrifying organisms to spread across the galaxy. And you want to know what the most terrifying part of the Tyranids is? We might be surrounded. There have been like around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets. And they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy have had different Tyranids come through.
Oh, fuck.
And that is horrifying because as far as we know, we could just be surrounded on all sides by Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole...
And the fact that they're coming from all angles means that if we are truly surrounded, it means they are like the apex predator, which means we're fucked, right?
A lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters. All these giant bugs swarming in, killing and eating everybody and evolving. I mean, as cool as there are, there's some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye. You can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around them. As awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat you.
They're bugs.
They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk Gene Stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want, I get around faster than walking, and wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene...
What is that audio cut? The bugs are simple evolutionary, and then we have Gene Stealers.
Gene Stealer cults are a special brand of Tyranid that can slowly...
Favorite faction so far? So far, none of the non-human factions are fascinating to me. I mean, obviously, there's the female-only faction of the Sisters, and Sisters of Battle might be kind of where I'm leaning.
Infect themselves into different kinds of society, and by infecting them, they can rise up to where they all pray and believe in these regular humans. Pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords and I think they're called patriarchs all can turn an entire world.
Thank you for the hype train, guys.
All based into Gene Stealer.
I appreciate it.
And these are called Gene Stealer cults. An entire hive world of the Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants to the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit. They also have this cool like Mad Max look, which is really neat. They are definitely one.
Wait, so it's almost like an infection, like a DNA infection to make like a hive mind?
The bigger threats to the Imperium besides Chaos. I keep saying biggest threat to the Imperium. They're up there though, because you, dingus, stepped on a bug in middle school. Asshole. There is a cancer eating at the Imperium. With each decade, it advances deeper, leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror, this abomination, has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale. And all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineer monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey. Tyranids.
Oh.
They're cool. But are they as cool as the orcs?
Every screen's gone red. That means I'm super fast.
Orcs.
Meat's back on the menu, boys.
Orcs.
Orcs. Guys. The chat.
Best.
Orcs.
So, yes, the green monsters, the green tide, the green skins.
Our green boys.
These orcs, they are in fact a race in 40k. The orcs are as exactly what you expect them. They have archaic weapons, they're big.
X200. There's a book called The Devastation of Baal.
Let's see.
Space Marines versus Tyranids. Adaptation happens in minutes mid-battle and multiple times.
The devastating. I know there's a video about the books, and I kind of want to watch the video about the books that are in the Warhammer 40k universe, of which a lot of them seem to have been retconned. But I'm a big reader, and I just started reading one of the old Star Wars books. I know they're not canon anymore, but they're the old universe.
Boys, they have axes,
The
and
books
they
are
got big
awesome.
old teeth, and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them. The only reason they haven't taken over the entire galaxy is they can't stop murdering each other. Orcs are so cool. Orcs don't have philosophy. Orcs don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy, because he the biggest orc. He big orc knows best.
I want to be big
You win
orc.
the power of imagination. Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend. They wage war with machines that should not work, care little for strategic gains, and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does one battle an enemy that defies all logic? As an orc, you're enjoying life.
They can't read your thought.
You're enjoying the life you're given.
'Cause you
your
don't know.
whole life and job and purpose is to get up and beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything. He is the boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb, stereotype British accent, which is just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight. You like to fight.
So, question. How do these guys survive? This is nuts. There's all of this planning and plotting in order to survive this universe that is in such political chaos. They're British hooligans. Oh, there's just in 30k. Okay, there has to be like the pipeline of books to read, and there has to be the offshoots, right? So they reproduce asexually, so they can just produce by, and I'm assuming like fungal, like you have the spores. It must just be thousands of spores per orc, making them kind of like infinitely reproductive, because in order to not need brains in this universe, you must need numbers. They must be the numbers people.
You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss, because if you don't listen to the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs, and then you can't fight because orc dead. And orc dead can't fight because orc dead. Orcs. They scrap together machines out of parts that don't make any sense, and because they believe, they have the mental imagination that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with your fellow orcs, and the biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you is like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on, and it works again.
There's no fucking way they believe it into existing. This guy made gas out of gaslighting. What? Groupthink. Orcs make thing from think. They're gods. They just materialized stuff from believing it. Guys, I see nothing closer to God. At the point where I believe and it is, and I think and it becomes. Materialize what? Gas? Materialize what? What does it stop at? Orcs is the best is not the response to this. How does this not break the universe? Guys, everything up to this point was so serious. Oh my god, guys. Does it have is the best. Guys. I can't believe this. Horses just repairing the ship, and another group of orcs told them that it needs to it was broken. Oh, they could reverse it.
Cheered.
Okay.
X200. Unless someone shows them otherwise, orcs can breathe in the vacuum of space with no suit because they don't know they shouldn't be able to.
That doesn't make any. Do they have a god? There has to be a god. There's a god that's just like a funny dumb orc. Make it real. Make it real.
Gas?
Guys.
Probably not.
There are 2 gods. Oh,
but it
there's 2.
works. The power of imagination.
2 gods.
They paint things.
Guys, you were waiting for this. You were waiting
James
for
Nolan
this.
cheered. X200. There's a story about a group of guardsmen out of ammo decide to yell bang and the orcs actually die. Until a group of orcs start chanting, "Im a tank, im a tank."
I'm a tank. I'm a tank. Starts. It becomes tank. Guys, this is the goofiest faction. There's the Arcturus War.
X200.
Oh my god, thank you for that.
Orc is brutally cunning, but Mork is cunningly brutal.
Oh, guys, so there's 2 gods. The orcs just believe it into existence, but it's not because they will. If there's no will, it's just the IQ low. Think may be true, become. This is crazy. All right, we gotta start. Guys, you all love orcs. Admit it. Admit it. Look at you all gushing over orcs. This is nuts. Yes. I'm having so much fun watching you guys love the orcs. Orcs is strong. Orcs is the bestest. Not gonna lie. Yeah. It's so nice because this is a breath of fresh air in this universe, right? There's like, here, let me turn the heat off. It's like a whole bunch of guys, right? And they're all like, so seriously, like, I pray. The sisters are all like extreme religious zealots, and then there's the heresy, and it's so serious. But then you have orc. Orcs is best. Chat, I'm orcs. We believe Sunny best streamer, Mr. Bite. Wait, if you believe it, it will become true. I love this so much. Orcs is strong. All right, I gotta hear more about these orcs.
Red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You wanna know why? You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so. Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame. But back then they were called Krorks, and they were much larger and scarier and far more intelligent. Now they're just orcs, and they're big, dumb, and they smack.
What selected the intelligence out of them?
But they're pretty spooky. They're not very well armored, but they hit really hard, and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many orcs. There are about as many orcs as there are Tyranids. Maybe more. Who knows? But they keep on, murdering each other, so it's not too bad of an issue. Orcs are entirely comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together. That makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that it works. Orcs care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then when they go and they issue a WA is just war in orc. They murder everybody.
X200.
Thank you so much.
And everything in this giant.
They
aren't
know
philosophically
no
complete.
They don't fear death.
They don't fear
Life
death.
is simple. Fight and follow DA boss.
Oh my god, they're so simple. This is what we strive to be. How many of us think too much? How many of us think too much? This is the ideal human condition. Guys, I think I might like the orcs. I don't know.
Tide of green orcs who are just excited to be hitting something. They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between. They're just so they get to beat shit up.
_snake_drive.
It appears you get orcified.
That's orcs.
Guys, no, and there is like the thinking is pain, but it's to be an ant in a colony, like there is some inherent, by the way, I'm starting to lag, oh my god, there's inherent like the no thought act on, we're constantly seeking the state of flow, am I right? Like where there's not much think but lots of experience, and these guys are all of that. It's so great. There's experience and excitement and billions of them. And you got brothers everywhere. This is so cool. Orcs in the Warp is an amazing story.
And on the tabletop, they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player. I have never met someone who plays orcs and is ever just a bad guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when you play them, you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing. Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher because they're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained. Orcs, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they roll a 6, they get to make another shot with anything, from the dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher. It doesn't matter. Half of their stuff will blow up on a whim. One of their medics, if you roll a 1 to heal someone, you fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc. They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush people. And if you don't, you lose. I mean, that's what you get when you play orcs.
You knew I would love this. This is what I like in games. I want a hard fucking win, or I want to lose and be in the mud. Guys, gunfire Daka!
There is a very credible theory. Good as any other.
Must be unstoppable. There's a theory that the orcs believe have this idea of the Emperor as unstoppable and are putting that thought out into the warp. And they're helping by the probably, I'm assuming, trillions. It's nuts. I like the orcs. Daka. Ah. Dude, imagine the rolling a 1 and killing your orc is hilarious. I love this so much. And the only hitting on the up super high rolls, but then getting a 2nd is the RNG. And you know my luck. I would win these. Give Poutine. Thank you for the bits. Woo! I'm so excited. This is so fun.
That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip, which is why you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs, because things won't go your way. It's just the roll of the dice. You're playing a dice game. But if you're going to have fun and you want to be stupid and you want to be silly, you're going to play some damn orcs. But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons.
Okay, guys, we're going to the Necrons. I feel bad. It's taken me almost an hour and a half to get through 44 minutes of this video because I keep pausing. I want to know more information. I want to talk about this, but I need to piss again. So I'm going to be right back. My opinion of the orcs is that's what I would build. You all know I like, so of course the lore is so fun, but you have to, like, the silly is the true tabletop fun. So let's get into the Necrons.
The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grimdark again. They have a much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but now they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see a theme here: Eldari, Eldar, Krork, Orc, Necron, Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, because their lives were awful. They were ill-fated to a horrible existence of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necron tier was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality. They were extremely reliant on the hope that they would eventually find the key to living forever and just stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy.
Why would you want to continue to live if your life is so shit? But also, this reminds me, there was back in Greece, there was an endless war for immortality because things got too boring. Their lives were too good in the upper class.
We found this group. They're called the Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo or the Xel'Naga in StarCraft, right? These Old Ones were these strong, pretty much omnipotent beings, and they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons went to them and said, "Please, show us your ways." Yeah. And the Old Ones said, "Piss off." Not really, they were a lot more humble about it, but they did not want to share their secret of immortality with the Necrons. The Necrons, of course, took this very well and waged war with them. kind of under this united banner. The Necron different dynasties didn't really like each other, but under this one man, the Silent King, he thought the best way to unite his race was to do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them. This was known as the War in Heaven, and this is actually like a multi-stage war, because during this War in Heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan. These Star Gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key to immortality. And so the Necrons went to them and said, hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones, you, the Catan? And the Catan said yes. And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek. So the Silent King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this, of course, had been a horrendous trap. And the Necrons were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with nothing but a metal hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chonk on the souls of the Necrons. As this was their plan all along, they consumed the flesh and souls of the Necron tier and turned them all into unwilling robotic slaves just to serve their will.
So this is basically me when I was 16 and constantly getting scammed by all my friends. This is Victor from Arcane. So, okay, we have Catan, the Old Ones, and the Necrons. Necrons wanted to be immortal. They went to this Catan guy who tricked them.
And then, with their new-founded Necron army, they pointed their guns at the Old Ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these Old Ones. The Old Ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orcs, to try to fight off the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the Old Ones were absolutely extinguished across the galaxy.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I feel like we needed to start this. Okay, we needed to start with this one. So we basically have the Orcs and the Eldari, or whatever, the elves. This is the start. So Necron are one of the, this is the War in Heaven started everything. Eldar. He called it the Eldar. Eldar? Yeah, I think there's, okay, Eldar. So we have, to begin, in the beginning, there are Eldari, and okay, I'll call it the Eldar though. Okay, yes, sorry, I forgot there's two words. So we have, in the beginning, we have these, this is the very, very beginning, the Old Ones and the Necrons. The Necrons don't have a very good life, want to live forever. They go to the Old Ones, ask for immortality. They say no. And then we have the Catan, who tricks the Necrons into saying, we'll give you everything you want, but they take all their souls, get really strong. And then, so basically Necrons are currently ruled by the Catan. Like they are puppets? Or are they just a vengeful, like we didn't get immortality, we became these robot people, not currently ruled? Okay.
Their entire race completely removed. Full on 100% genocide. However, during all this, the Catan, just infatuated with their victory, started fighting each other for fun, for sport, and for small differences, doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orcs actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit, giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to leap into action and start a full-scale revolt against their Catan masters. And this revolt was bloody, as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them, because as these star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults
Somebody
to
say
now actually
Titan?
be slaves to the Necrons. And with the
What?
Necrons having the entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, they realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Krorks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back, and they see all these primitive races on their lawns, and they think, get the fuck off of it. The Necrons are back, super advanced, and they are here to reclaim the galaxy that they so rightfully believe is theirs.
Okay. That's actually interesting because, of course, this is an ancient race. They put themselves to sleep to actually avoid the orcs and to avoid the Eldari. And instead, well, they managed to avoid them, but they're stuck in like the freaking past, which is more advanced. So they're actually stronger. That's crazy. The Book of the Infinite and the Divine of the Necron focused and a good starting book. Everything's a good starting book. And I could get starting book for this. I gotta read like 10 billion trillion books. Oh, they're 10 billion years old.
Are terrifying. An example of their highest level of weaponry is a star map of the galaxy. And if you activate any sun on the map, the corresponding sun in reality goes supernova.
What? Necrons are busted. That's why you don't diddle. We shouldn't have diddled. I don't think we meant to diddle. If we knew it was in there, we would no one would have diddled. And I think that's probably what that technical kind of guy needed to say. I'm sorry I diddled. Please go back to bed. We're not ready for you. So basically, Necrons captured these gods. We have captured gods in, Chronos style, scattered across the universe, but not scattered, but in a container. Are they scattered or are they actually in a container? Are they like in pieces in a container? God in a jar. Scattered in a jar. Cut into pieces in jar. In a jar. Got you. Okay, Tupperware. So we have Tupperware gods, and they've just been left out there. They're in Pokeballs. So they left their gods out there, and other people found their gods. They're broken into crystals. And these are star gods. These are like powerful, inconceivably powerful gods that took all of their souls. These guys are soulless. And oh my god. Tupperware. Entombed, surrounded by a sleeping Necron army. Okay, they eat stars for food. Christ.
Now, at tabletop, they're all like that. Tons of undead Egyptian skeleton robots that when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves as units to fight with. Pretty cool. The Necrons are one of 3 major events in 40k. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events. And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote from a wonderful Dawn of War game. Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Here, my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor victims of life. We will grant you tranquility in these crypts. Kronos will be a tomb world once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trazyn the Infinite especially, a little dickhead. But speaking of dickheads, last race.
We made a fucking Wookiee.
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood. However, a long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40k world that is, some Imperial navigation vessels were going around through different areas, and they saw a primitive race, blue people, smacking each other with sticks and stones. And they thought, dumb Xenos race, who gives a shit? And they bailed. Then this giant warp storm.
The legs!
There are 2 reasons the Necrons haven't already won the galaxy.
One,
they're still waking up. 2,
Oh.
they literally have a code of honor from when they were real.
Real people enforced by a special case that force them to have honorable fights and not to use some form of advance than what their enemy has. This means the rest of the galaxy is fighting with stony shit and worse, getting this shit kicked. Okay, so basically Necrons are just like super they're like the ethos, this is not within our virtue, and then they fight on equal terms anyway, even though they're super advanced. That's pretty nuts. This is a cultural thing. But then we have the Tau here, who are weeps.
Occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided, hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under one flag of the Tau Empire. And now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers and railguns and mechs, and they are here to ruin your day for the greater good. That is generally the Tau Empire. They have this kind of feeling of homogenous group. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit, but then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy.
Ooh, so this is very interesting, because obviously, like, so ethics is a form of philosophy. Philosophy tries to answer unanswerable questions, such as like, what is good? What is bad? What is right? What is wrong? And so these guys follow the greater good, which is utilitarianism, which is the most net happiness, I'm assuming. Whatever creates the most net happiness. And I just find it's like interesting to see different types of, different forms. Philosophy coming into this. Because, we got the metaphysics, we got the ethics. There's so many unanswered questions. And different people with different walks of life.
Alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance.
Space communism.
Seek to understand his differences and equate him with his inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place.
You couldn't be a VTuber in their society. You're forced to work on something that helps the society. Is that bad? There's a lot of jobs out here nowadays that do nothing. The next time I scroll and see a TikTok influencer trying to sell me a foot massager, I'm gonna yump out this window. You lose individualism. See, that's very good point.
In the greater
They're about brainwashing.
That is
no
generally
choices.
the Tau. And if you're kind of wondering like what their mainly big shtick is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and rail guns. They got giant mechs with tons of missile pods and heavy rail rifles and rail guns and burst cannons and ion accelerators and void shields and all this stuff. And that is generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, Bricky, this doesn't sound that evil. Yeah. And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grimdark style like everybody else. They're much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day, because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So, see, the Tau get a lot of
Who cares about philosophy? They got robots.
That hate isn't necessarily unjustified. It's mainly from a tabletop perspective. But as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40k universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic.
Give up to stay alive. The contrast makes it all more apparent. I talk about how like our reality exists in contrast, like two sides of the same coin, right? But like we almost can't feel something. We don't feel comfort when we felt comfort. Like we need to get more comfortable and more comfortable and more comfortable. So it's like, I get it. Having this kind of a blander faction actually might exist to emphasize, but also, yeah, they are young. They've only existed for, well, you have the monkey, like stick, and then 6,000 years later they evolve really quickly. So I mean, that's actually really interesting. They just kind of blinked and they're like, oh, what the fuck? Oh, they have spaceships, they have mechs. So yeah, but I mean, like, that's part of why doing bitter and sweet, mixing those things or eating one after the other, helps you be able to taste both to their greatest extent. So we do various various stuff.
Kind of
Mix it
high
up.
gothic level the Imperium has. They don't have the weird kind of like grungy stuff that Chaos or say the Orcs do. And the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam. And while it isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well. There's also the tabletop problem.
Marketing.
In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good at range combat. So they blast everyone from really, really far away, and they have a million rules to make it so that
only some 4 or 5K years old. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be shocking to find, oh, this technology is so much older. You know, the faction itself's only so young. Like, they probably have only had this technology for a couple, maybe 1,000, maybe even a couple hundred years. Technology advances really quickly, and it'd be like, oh, this is ancient.
it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every time because they're the Tau, and the Tau are really damn good at shooting. So it's one of those things that make the Tau generally rather hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both from style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes, of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time of day. You pick what you think is cool and what you like. You should only be playing what you think is cool. You like the look, you like the models. If you're talking tabletop, that is what you should be going for every time, is what you think is badass.
So you gotta get what looks good.
Change all the time. But the universe of Warhammer has so much going for it. Every faction has something interesting. Every character has a story, and there's a million stories to be told. The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, is anything you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done, you can find yourself having a pretty great time. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it has been informative to you. If you'd like to see more of me, Bricky, we have Twitch.
Oh my god, twitch.tv/Bricky. Subscribe. This is my second channel. Guys, what the hell? That was so good. Okay. Clack, 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 clack. Thank you, Bricky. Brickless. Everyone follow and watch Bricky. You've already done it. These videos have 10 million views. There's no more views to be had on the videos. Just kidding. Go watch the video. Okay. My takeaways are the gods are not that directly impactful. It's the guys who work for the gods. These chaos gods, big impact. The chaos gods, cool. We've got the sleeping. We have the Necrons. We've got a whole bunch of different Alders, elf, evil elf, question mark elf. We've got the weeaboos. We've got just so much. We got the orcs. Honestly, okay, favorite human faction, the sisters, definitely. We've got Korn, but I think maybe orcs, best non-human faction. That's hilarious. You have to have something goofy in there to balance out. I like the variety. You know, every faction's got its own sense of, you know, its own shit going on. And obviously there's going to be, I kind of have an idea of the factions independently. I don't know where they stand in the universe. Like geographically, the geographic location has so much to do with how their politics actually play out. Favorite Space Marine chapter? I can't even. They all, we passed through those so quickly.
Professor Shap cheered. X200. There is also one new faction, as another chatter said, which are the League of Votan. They are a race of clone human space dwarves who mine everything and have advanced tech with them using
rock and stone. They knew it. They knew we wanted rock and stone. They fucking knew it. Guys. Okay, Warhammer's pretty cool. That's so neat. There's so many factions. Oh my god. You watch Legion's video, you can pick it up. I'm gonna have to watch independent ones. I didn't really like when, you know, the Space Marines each have their own independent section, but there would just be a section called the Space Marines, and I wouldn't be able to absorb what makes them different from each other. I would just remember that there are the Space Marines. So we're definitely going to need to do some of this. I'm going to need to do more research. There's just so much. There's so much to know. The books, I think, are what really gets me into this. So, okay, what types of media are there? I know that it started, question mark, as a tabletop game, right? Time to get your models and start painting. That's so fun. I like to paint. Books, tabletop, video games. So, books and games are the biggest one. There's just, it's an enormous universe. There's fan animations, okay. So I know like the major like galaxy changing events, but probably just like, you know, there's probably more that are to a lesser extent, but the main big three, Necrons waking up, Heron fucking dying, the Emperor God King becoming incapacitated, the creation of the ADHD God. There's so many enormous ones. There's the Wiki too. To be fair, they existed before the SWATs, and most of them were eaten by the Tyranids. And if you want the Tyranids, I can't forget the Tyranids. Check out the list. Slaanesh. There's so much. Okay, this is big. And I don't want to become a React content creator, but it's hard not to like continuously watch this stuff because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have a pretty good idea by the end of it, the second part. And I have like an idea of what having an idea might be. I have like the very overwhelming concepts of what these races are and the factions, quote unquote. But I don't know how they interact with the world. I think for me personally, before I know the big people, the hard-hitting individuals who actually create history here, and also the timeline, which is going to be really important. I really want to know the geographic setup, right? Because I can't tell. I guess that's going to be part of the timeline, because obviously we're going to be taking and losing territory. Planets. What's that planet called, guys? What are we holding out on? The Kalia event. There's no way. It's so sad. I want Kalia. And I can't help myself. I am such a yapper. I just talk to the point where I'm like, wait for this bit to end. Wait for him to stop talking. And then and I'm talking. I interrupted the point, and it's probably so obnoxious to watch as a viewer. I know I can't help myself. I try not to. It's virtually impossible to stop myself. What a day.